Hello and welcome to India Career Center, the one-stop podcast for students, professionals, parents and guardians. In every episode, we will try to deal with a current topic that needs expert advice related to career guidance and career mentoring. Please welcome your host, Dr. S.P. Mishra to the show and happy listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode on India Career Center. Today, I'm delighted to have Mr. Gaurav Wadekar from Pune. He joins us to talk about the various career opportunities which are there in Australia. Now, Gaurav himself has spent little over 16 years in Australia in different times between 2008 to 2024. And he has vast knowledge about the country, about the various career opportunities over there. So who better can guide us about on that subject? So Gaurav, thank you so much to be with us today and welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me, SV. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so Gaurav, before we jump into the subject, can you briefly talk about your own journey from India to Australia and back to India, how it has all panned out?
Yeah, sure. No, look, I generally tell people that I never had a straight line journey. So many people probably have a straight line journey in terms of their career, profession, personal life. So for me, I grew up in a sort of a traditional middle class family, with an intent that I should do my engineering, do my MBA, which I obviously did. Got a job in one of the Indian IT services. And then through that, my international journey started. So, the first time I went overseas was back in 2006 or 7 when I moved to US. There I worked for one of the Indian IT services firms. And then, I had my personal life going on in parallel. I got married, and my wife at that time was in Australia. So we were sort of contemplating between US and Australia, and somehow, the home minister always wins, as they say. So, I decided to move to Australia, and which probably in hindsight was a good decision because Australia is a beautiful country, and it turned out to be an amazing life so far. So when I went there, obviously, I was in a different role. I was more into a sales role, and I realized that you need some local experience to find, sales jobs because sales is all about network and connections. So, and that is something that I didn't had. So I struggled a bit, like couple of months, I was not getting the right opportunities. And finally, I decided to change my career and move into technology transformation where I started my job with one of the government agencies there, working as a business analyst. And that's how my whole career panned out to be in the technology transformation area. So after that, I moved many roles. I worked for some large banks in Australia. I worked for aviations. I was working at Sydney Airport for a few years. And during this period, I had various hats. I was managing teams, I was delivering large programs, but predominantly to help businesses use technology efficiently. So that was my full-time role and full-time career. In between, I did travel back to India for a couple of years. I did a few other things. But when I went back in 2017, which is about 7 years back, I realized that a lot of people are actually migrating to Australia and they are struggling to find jobs. So, along with my full-time job, I accidentally started, finding a job in Australia meetup, which turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life because it was a good way of giving back to the society and try and help as many people as I can, which I was able to do through the meetup, and it launched me into this whole recruitment area where I started, consulting and helping people find jobs. Why I said accidentally is because I wanted to actually start something in the business analysis space, and I conducted one event which was there in Martin Place, which is a very popular area in Sydney. And four people came to that event, and they were all looking for jobs. And that's how I realized that people need help with job search more than anything. So I started conducting monthly events as part of the meetup on different topics associated with job search, resume, interviews, dealing with recruiters. In 2019, I got sponsored by Randstad, which is one of the very big recruiting firm there. So I started doing some events at their offices in Sydney City, and there I was able to get speakers from Seek, from which is one of the big job portals there, from LinkedIn. They used to come and share about how LinkedIn works and how people can efficiently use LinkedIn to find jobs. So that gave me a lot of exposure to different things that are associated with job search. Now, Australia as a market is quite unique. It has its own nuances when it comes to job search. So that way I was able to give advice to people, guide them, help them sort of position themselves for the right roles. And it has been a quite fulfilling journey for me, because I enjoy doing that. I found that that is something that I enjoy more than probably what I did in my full-time job, which obviously I was doing well, but this is something which was giving me more of a satisfaction, personal satisfaction, that okay, somebody found a job, somebody was able to build a career because of any input or guidance that you were able to give. So very meaningful difference that you can see in people's lives and what impact you can create. So yeah, that was how the whole journey in the job search industry started. Last year I started Jobseeker Circle, which is a platform to help people build their professional network. So one of the things that I realized is that a lot of people who move overseas, or they're coming to Australia, for example, they lack professional network. They don't know as many people. Maybe they know a few friends, maybe a few colleagues, but a broader professional network is something which they strive for. So the platform is actually created so that people can build their network one connection at a time. We connect people one-on-one so that they can have conversations. They can then help each other with their resumes, job search, introductions. So, and that has been a good journey, because that has now allowed me to leave my full-time job. And now I'm, totally focusing on Job Seeker Circle. I've also started other communities, like I'm working on another community for business analysts. And now I've reached a stage where I thought that, maybe I should also try and help a lot of Indians who are planning to move overseas, who are trying to set up, their lives in the overseas now. Because I have lived there, I can give good understanding and guidance of, what they should think. So that made me move back. Also some family reasons. It is good to be, closer to aging family that I have on both sides. So it is good to be with them. And I have growing kids as well. So, that also, they were more interested in spending time with family, so that made me, take the decision to come back for now. Although I have sort of, been traveling to Australia a lot, because all my network, all my business, all my connections are there. So I still do a lot of events there, still sort of, talk to a lot of people. But yeah, that's a bit about me, in terms of how my journey has panned out until now. And thankfully, it has been a quite promising one. Yeah.
Great, Gaurav. So before we dive deeper into Australia, which is our focus area today, can you start by explaining what factors one should consider while considering to go overseas for a career opportunity? What are the
Yeah.
various factors one should actually take into account?
And a good question, SP. I think it is very important to make the decision to move overseas for the right reasons, because otherwise the move can be quite frustrating. So I'll give an example. One of the very common things that people try to make a move is financial reason. So they think that the incomes that they can earn overseas might be a lot more than what they are earning here. But if you look at India, the Indian industry has really grown. The salaries in India have grown. So Like when I started my career like 20 years ago, my first paycheck was maybe 15-20K as an MBA graduate, so which definitely has changed now where people are demanding 50, 60, 70K per month, as a starting salary if they have done MBA from good reputed colleges. So the salaries have gone up here. So, when you do an income comparison, then, that factor has almost neutralized if you really think of it. So, if somebody is just moving because they think that they will be earning more, if they are earning less here, then that could not be maybe the right reason, depending on where you are in your career and, how much money you are earning, etc. So it is very important to think of it a little bit more holistically. You think that maybe I can get some global exposure or global experience. That could be one of the parameters that you want to think. It also depends on where you are in your personal life as well. So maybe you are early, maybe you're a single react and you want to explore the world and you want to travel. So that could be another good reason. If you're a young family, maybe your kids are too small, then it is a good idea to maybe go there and sort of give them a little bit exposure to international education in Australia, or maybe even the later years. If you want to send your kids for higher education in Australia, then that might be also another factor to consider. That okay, now if you generally you will turn like in your late 40s, mid 50s, and when your kids are going to go to higher education, then it might be too late to migrate. So maybe you want to start early on, maybe 4 or 5 years early on, and then start thinking about migrating. If you have family members overseas, so that could be another reason. So you want to find the right reason basically to migrate. If you're just migrating on the basis of income, then you may find that the standard of living that you were able to maintain here based on whatever income that you have might not be the same standard of living overseas because of the cost of living in those countries like Australia. So uh, look, I have written a book about it. It's called An Immigrant's Guide to Integration. So it was written back in 2018, but it still holds true in terms of what you should consider when you are deciding to move overseas, because that is the starting point of your international journey. Nowadays, obviously, a lot of Indians move overseas because of work, etc., where they go through the organizations themselves. But if you're deciding to go on your own, then you want to do it for the right reasons.
Right. So now let's understand about what is the process one should actually look at in terms of if somebody has to decide to go to Australia, for example, then what's the process one should follow?
Yeah, look, there are multiple routes that somebody can go. If you're really early on, say you're a student, you can think of going as for education, so you can go through the student route. Obviously, whenever you're moving overseas, the first thing you need is the right visa. So if you're going there for studies, you need a student visa. If you're going there for working, you need a work visa. So the first step is to actually identify as to why you're going there, and then you think about what are the possible visas that you can really apply for. So Australia has a very comprehensive, migration support system. It has a lot of, good information available online as well about different visas that are available. If you think of permanent visa or permanent residency, which gives you full rights to live in the country and work in the country, then it takes a little bit longer. It has 1.5, 2 years of cycle to get your visa process sorted. Generally, there are registered migration agents that you can go and talk to, and they can guide you based on your individual circumstance, your age, your family, your occupation. All that information can help you get the right guidance in terms of how you can position yourself for the permanent residency visa. Then there is something called sponsorship visas, which are generally given by employers for people who are working in certain skills or certain areas which are having a shortage in the country. So they are able to then sponsor you. The only thing is that then you're attached to that employer, so you can't really change jobs or do anything. You have to work for that same company until your visa lasts. Generally, these are 2 years, 4 years, 5 years visa, depending on where you're working. Like some regional visas where you may have to go into regional towns. there you may get 5 years visa, so where you are able to live. There are a lot of good information available on what skill shortages are there, and you can see if your occupation is part of that, so it increases the chances of getting sponsorships. So yeah, it is very important to decide first as to which route you're going to take, and then you think of the visa. Now, this is just the visa part of it. Then apart from this, you want to start thinking about where you're going to live. So there are some very big cities in Australia. Most of the big cities are on the eastern coast. So you have Sydney, you have Melbourne, you have Brisbane, you have Adelaide, and then on the western coast you have Perth, you have Darwin at the top, which is again a smaller city, but it's still large enough within its own territory. So you think about where you're going to live. Most of the people who migrate, they live in the eastern coast. They either go to Sydney or Melbourne. Some go to Adelaide or some go to Brisbane. Very few people move to Perth. It's a quiet town. It's not as big as Sydney or Melbourne. And then you think about, okay, if I'm going to that place, then where am I going to live? There are a lot of suburbs which are very much Indian community friendly. So a lot of Indian communities live in those suburbs. So you want to live probably there, or if you want to give a little bit of more, cosmopolitan or multicultural exposure to yourself or to your family, then you can think of areas accordingly. So you want to decide as to where you want to live. Then you obviously want to think about a job. So, if you're moving overseas, then you want to think about whether you want to work. If you're going for studies, is okay. As a student, there are restrictions on what amount of work you can do. So I think you can only work for 20 hours a week. So generally, you end up doing more of part-time or casual roles when you go as a student, if you want to support really your education, or if you want to financially help your education. But for full-time jobs, obviously you want to start doing it right away. So as soon as you start thinking of a visa process, you also need to start thinking of what kind of job you're going to get, how you're going to position yourself. uh, the very important thing is that you want to understand the local market, what roles are there, what titles they use. Like, I'll give an example. In India, we use presidents, vice presidents, assistant vice presidents are very common titles in a lot of organizations. But in Australia, we don't have those kind of titles. So we rely more on general managers, CXOs, head offs, those kind of titles. So you want to see as to how you're going to position yourself, what titles you're going to go for. Then start developing your network in that area. So start connecting with professionals who are in those titles or those roles, so that you can start getting a little bit more advice on the way of working, the culture. Start connecting with recruiters there, so you start getting a little bit more exposure on the market and industry trends and etc. So this is something that generally takes a longer time. So I would say that as soon as you have started your visa process, you start your job search process as well. Because getting job from overseas is definitely a challenge, because they want somebody who already is there, or who's already has the working rights. But having said that, you can still nevertheless start having conversations. You never know, you may get sponsorships as well. You may end up talking to people who are willing to sponsor you based on your skill set during these conversations. So I think there are multiple things that you will have to start doing when you're thinking about moving overseas. It's just not one thing. Obviously, visa is the first thing, but apart from that, you want to start thinking about your family life, where you're going to live, if you have kids, what schools they're going to go to. So you need to start thinking of all those things as well.
Right. So just to understand a little more about the current situation with respect to what types of job roles are there, what is the industry trends trending right now in Australia? Can you give us some sense? I know it's a slightly broad question, but then uh, for us to for the audience to understand uh, what kind of roles are currently being looked at as an opportunity in Australia.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely a broad question, and it is not sort of a one thing fits all the states. So you want to look at Australia as different states. So
Okay.
there are some major states. You have New South Wales, you have Victoria, you have Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia, Tasmania, Northern Territory. So you want to think of all these as states, and think about which states require what kind of skill set at the moment. So there's a lot of demand for hardcore engineers. If you're a mechanical engineer, if you're aeronautics engineer, if you're a chemical engineer, those kind of engineers, they definitely are in a big demand. Agriculture is in big demand. So if you are in the agriculture space, then obviously they need a lot of people who can go there and do farming. Then nurses is a perpetual thing. If you're a nurse, there's a lot of shortage in Australia of good quality nurses. Aged care is very big in Australia. So obviously, there is a lot of old people, mostly in Australia, the nuclear family systems, right? So as soon as people get old, they go into aged care facilities where they have all the, demands met, and that's why it's a very big industry. So I have seen a lot of doctors, MBBS, if they do here and they don't get enough opportunities, they move in there and they get into aged care, which pays all right. It's not very bad pay. It's an average good salary pay, and you can also do some fulfilling work in that space. Then chefs, not in all states, not in New South Wales, but in other states, chefs are other skill. So there is a jobs and skills government website which I can share the link with your audience, but they can go and have a look and they can search their own skill and they can see where the shortage is, because then that is where the opportunities are. If the government is saying, oh, this is a place where there is a shortage, then there is an opportunity where you may get sponsorship, for example, or if you're applying for jobs, you may get good responses. That is the area where people really are struggling to fill the available open positions. There used to be a time when a lot of technology folks were required, especially developers, business analysts, project managers, but that has changed now. So that area has been taken care of. A lot of government investment has gone into skill development, education, etc., to build that kind of skill set. But construction project managers is another area where people are struggling to fill roles. So again, if you are in the construction space, then there is a good possibility that you may get roles there. Yeah, but there is a whole list of skill set that are sort of in shortage, and that is where the opportunities are.
Okay, great. So, number one is I would love to have that link what you're mentioning so that we can share it on the show notes. That's number one. Number two, now let us look at your organization, which is Jobseekers Circle. How you as a platform is able to create that bridge of knowledge between the job seeker and the opportunity in Australia. If you can give us some sense of what exactly job seeker is trying to do in that.
Sure. So look, there are two aspects to Jobseeker Circle. As I said earlier, one is the platform that we are building, which is a sort of a professional network building platform. So think of it as LinkedIn, but more personalized. So on LinkedIn, if you go, you can connect with people and you can message them, etc. But here, it is a professional network built for you. So the idea here is that you join the platform and we will build a network for you. So we will send you an invitation to meet somebody every week so that you can slowly and steadily building your connections and trying to get introductions or help with your job search. Then the other bit is the consulting bit, where we do a lot of one-on-one coaching, consulting, training on different aspects of job search. When you think of job search, I think of job search as like a sales funnel. So the more jobs you apply and the quality of your job applications, which jobs you're applying, how you're applying, whether you're applying to portals, whether you're applying directly through references, through recruiters, that will depend on the number of calls that you're going to get. Then based on the calls, how many of those you really convert to interviews, and then how many of them you convert to job offers. So that's probably the normal cycle of any job aspirant. So what I specifically focus on is getting role clarity, because as I was saying earlier, titles can vary in terms of what people generally end up doing. So very important to understand that what is your role, what are your skill set, what are your strengths, and how you are able to contribute in the right roles and in the right organizations, right industries as well. So in general, in Australia, people are a little bit risk averse. So we want to hire people who have seen that, done that. So if you don't have experience in a particular space, then it becomes a bit difficult to get into those areas, which is probably true anywhere in the world where people want to see the right relevant experience. So the first step is to understand, what kind of role you're really going to create it, and for that you require a little bit of assistance from an experienced person who can give you a bit of an external view on, okay, this is your experience, these are your skills, these are your strengths. So you should apply for these roles, because that will be more relevant for you. So the first step is that. Then it is all execution, where your resume should be written accordingly. LinkedIn is very popular in Australia, so a lot of hiring happens through LinkedIn, a lot of networking happens through LinkedIn. So ensuring that you have the right LinkedIn profile, you are sending the right connection requests, you're sort of being little bit active on LinkedIn, so that all helps. So we help with that. Then there's a big hidden job market, which is there in all the countries probably, but in Australia it is quite apparent, where very few jobs really get advertised, because advertised jobs from a hiring manager perspective is probably the last resort. Generally people would like to hire through references or known associates. So if you're not talking to people, then you're missing out a big job market out there. So you can see that roles can get created if you have the right skills and you're talking to the right people as well. So I generally help on trying to connect you with the right people, and also teach you on how you can connect with the right professionals so that you can get the right assistance. And then finally the interview preparation. So how do you prepare for the interview? What kind of examples you prepare? How do you make it more of a relevant conversation? Now, if you are working in India, for example, and serving overseas clients, then it becomes very difficult for you to position yourself, because in Australia most of the people are like outsource things. So if you're working there, you're working for a end client. So if you're giving an example where I used to manage an offshore center, for example, that is not going to help them, because that is not what they are looking for. They're looking for somebody who's worked internally, within the sort of space. So yeah, it's basically a very structured way of finding job. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I need help finding a job in Australia, then I take them through a very structured way of approaching the job search, which will help them finding a job, but also finding the job in the right career direction. You don't want to obviously find a job which is not in line with your long-term career aspirations, or put yourself maybe 5 years behind from where you are currently. So that's how Job Seeker Circle generally helps people, because I feel like a lot of people find jobs, but they don't find it in a very structured, constructive way in which it can really align with their careers. So that is where Job Seeker Circle really helps and works.
Okay, so before we take a break, I just want a quick one. So the Seeker Circle, one can join as a free of cost, or there is a small fees to be paid?
Look, the platform fee is $20 if you want to be on the platform. So you will be able to, connect with a lot of people and all that. And then there are specific fees associated with any service that you are taking. So either it could be a full-fledged coaching service, or you need only help with interview prep or role clarity, or, resume building, etc. So yeah, it is very less cost to join the platform so that you can network and build on it. But then if you want to go further, then there are additional costs associated with it.
Okay. Okay, we take a short break and come on the other side. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you
Sure.
for all your insights.
Thank you, SV.
Okay, welcome back, Gaurav. Welcome back to all the audience and listeners to this show. So, Gaurav, we were trying to understand about Job Seeker Circle. What you mentioned is that there's a small fee for people to join this. And the way I understand is that the moment somebody joins this particular association or agency, uh, it becomes imperative that you are going to take them through a kind of a personalized journey of advice, starting from what to target, which industry, how to target, and what kind of roles to target, and so on and so forth. So Job Seeker Circle is for anybody of any kind of skill, right? I mean, it is not specific to any particular skill area.
Yeah, right. No, look, I think the job search process remains the same, irrespective of, whether you're an accountant, you're a chef, you're an engineer, you're in technology, whatever area that you're in. So the process remains the same. So it is applicable to anyone and everyone. Obviously, from my own personal experience, I have been very active in the technology space, so that is where most of my network is. So if you are a project manager, for example, I have a lot of colleagues and, connections and friends in the construction area or in the technology space, so, but if you are a chef, for example, so I may have limited ability to make your right connections in, say, hospitality. Not saying that I don't have any, but it is just that there might be certain limitations. But having said that, if you know the process, you can apply to any roles anywhere that you are, so like trying to build your network is a common thing. You should know how to reach out to people, connect with people. Very interesting fact about, say, recruiters. See, recruiters in Australia, if you try to connect them on LinkedIn, you will generally see that you will not get some good responses. They will accept the connection, but you might not get any reply because recruiters are getting a lot of connection requests from a lot of people, so but the right way of connecting with recruiters is by maybe calling them on their mobile or, sending them emails, because that is where you can start expecting some good responses. Also, not all recruiters recruit for all kind of roles. So you need to find a specific recruiters who are helping in the specific industry. So if you're a chef, there are recruitment companies who are, looking for people to hire in the hospitality industry. Then there are recruiters who are specific to technology, accountancy, marketing, all these different areas will have specific recruiters. So it is very important to identify the right ones and connect with them properly, So that is something which remains same for irrespective of which role you are. The other thing is that small tips like, for example, when you're applying in Australian market, it is important to have an Australian local number, because as soon as somebody will see an overseas number, then you will not get any response because they are expecting you to be, locally available. Even if you are working, right, say you applied for your permanent residency and you have got it, but if you are applying from here, you will think that maybe, I will do the entry and then come back. And then when I get a job, then I'll go. Then also it is important that you have local contact details because it is easier for them to contact you, on a local number, and then that way you can start expecting more responses and you can give a very definite answer on when you are planning to move. It is not like I will get a job and then I'll decide to come. It is, look, I am planning to move there, in the next 15 days, or something like that. Then you can have that kind of conversation. Now, this is something that you can only learn from somebody who's seen that, done that, and that will not depend on which background you are from. So these kind of tips will help you in, finding your job faster and smoother.
Okay, good. So we talked about immigration and the opportunities for PR and the process. You said it takes about a couple of years. But then Australia as a country, is it in a situation where they're still open for immigrants? I mean, across the world, I think there are too many noises about anti-immigration and all that. So, since you have been there, you worked there, what is the sense of ground zero? And do you see any changes in the recent times?
Yeah, look, these are completely my own personal observations and what I have seen in the local industry and local market. I think, see, Australia is a nation of immigrants. It is a very young country. If you really think of it, we have a very rich Aboriginal culture, in Australia, which is thousands of years old. But if we think of, the modern Australia as we know it today, it is quite young. It is only probably around 200, 250 years ago that the English landed in Australia and they discovered that there was a big land where they can bring a lot of people from their own country. And it started off as more of a jail. It was basically a jail for a lot of people, convicts who were in England. at that point in time. But they have done a really good job in developing the country, and obviously making it one of the most developed countries in the world right now. It has also been blessed because it has a very rich mining sort of industry. So if you look at Western Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, because the habitat sort of land of Australia is quite limited, but the rest of the land is very mining friendly. So it is a very rich mining industry there in Australia. And then all the other ancillary industries are built up, like tourism, for example, is very big in Australia. Education is very big in Australia. It has its own sort of banking sector and all the traditional industries that you will think of, retail, telecom, etc. So if you really think of it, it's quite well balanced country in terms of all that is available to people. And because it is migrant heavy, a lot of migration happens to the country. They have always been thinking about how to streamline the migration process, how to, so they keep on updating, for example, the skill shortage list, because they want to ensure that the right skills are getting opportunities if they are already in Australia, and then what kind of skills they want to really, migrate from overseas. So, from a government perspective, I think there's a lot of investment, a lot of attention given to migrants and migrant journeys. If you go there as a student, there's an excellent student support system which the universities have set up for people. So if you go there, you don't feel lonely. You have help available step by step. Even finding accommodation, for example, you will have step. There will be student volunteers who will come and pick you up at the airport. It starts from there. So it is very well organized in terms of the kind of help and support which is provided to people who move there. If you go there as a permanent resident, for example, or somebody who is going to work, on a, say, a sponsored visa, for example, then obviously there are things that you will have to figure out yourself in terms of, where to live, what to do. But again, there's a lot of information help that is available. So I would say, all in all, I think on the ground, there's a lot of support that is available to migrants in generally. It is just up to you as to how you position yourself, whether you are confident about your own skill set, your ability to deliver, ability to contribute, because that is what people generally look for. So if you start undermining your skills and your strengths, and you go there and you feel like, oh, I'm in a new country and I might probably have to start over, or do all that, and disregard your own experience, and obviously you feel into a vicious cycle and a trap where you may find it then difficult to find the right roles. Yeah, then like any country, there is always a cyclical sort of thing that happens where you have a lot of jobs that are available at the time. Then again, the job market kind of cools down. So Australia also went through that cycle in the last 4 or 5 years, where just before pandemic it was really doing well. Then during initial time of pandemic it fell down drastically, where a lot of redundancies happened. Then because people figured out that working from home was possible, and it was opening new opportunities, there was a surge in jobs where for every applicant, I would say there were like 3 or 4 jobs available. So it was very good for the job seekers at that time. Then again, as 2021, 22 happened, and then start things started stabilizing, then all those people who were recruited, again the redundancy started. So like last year was pretty bad in Australia. A lot of redundancies were happening. This year it has slowed down a bit, and now again 25 people are saying that it will start again. So from a job perspective, it is going through a cycle which most of the countries do. So it is nothing specific to Australia. So all in all, I will say it's a migrant friendly country. You go there, you are meeting, at least 50, 70 nationalities in your offices. So you'll get a lot of variation. So that way you will enjoy Australia as a country if you're really thinking about moving there. Yeah. See, there are a lot of things that goes on the news. If you look at news in general, you will feel like, oh, it's all a lot of negative things. But overall, I think my experience has been pretty good and pretty positive. So even like Australia had a very bad name from a racism perspective, where people thought that, oh, go to Australia, it's a racist country, all that. But that has drastically changed now. It was more in the context of how Australia treated Aboriginals, when they moved, 200, 250 years ago. But if you really think of it now, like about 15 years back, just when I had landed, Australian government did a big apology to the Aboriginals for how they were treated in the past. And now also there's a lot of effort going in, bringing up the sort of Aboriginals and the traditional custodians of the land there. So that way, I think the country has really matured and, has been very accepting of not only the traditional roots, but even the new people who are now coming in, because they understand the value that all the migrants bring in. And people in India, there's a lot of investment been made between Australia and India relationships as well. So a lot of committees have been formed now. There is a very active Australia India Business Council, which is run by very senior professionals from Australia, senior business owners from Australia and India. And there is a lot of to and fro between the governments. Like Narendra Modi ji has visited Australia many times. Now. Even Anthony Albanese is moving here, coming to India. Recently, just a couple of weeks back, our foreign minister Jaishankar, he was there, meeting all the Australian, government officials and looking at Australia-India ties. So I think Australia-India ties are at a all-time high right now. So if you're a Indian trying to or thinking about moving to Australia, then I think you should, really give it a thought, because migration and in general opportunities are supporting, the, as you said, on the ground.
Okay, fantastic. So can you share some successful stories which you have actually personally seen or known?
Oh, too many.
Mhm.
I'll give you some couple of different kind of examples and different kind of success stories. So I'll talk about this one lady, Vidya, and she had a very interesting journey. So she moved from India to Singapore first. And then in Singapore, she worked for a bit, and then obviously went on a maternity leave. After that, she stopped working. And then she had a big gap of, I think, about 6 to 7 years where she was not really working, and she decided to focus on her family. So when then she moved to Australia, the kids had grown up a little bit, and she thought now that she has some time, she should probably go get back into the market. She comes from a technology project management background, and there was a bit of lack of confidence, when you're trying to move back into the industry, and how you can really position yourself. Maybe things have drastically changed in terms of, when you were working, now you're working. So when she came to me and started talking about finding a job, I realized that I had to invest a lot of time in not only giving her role clarity, but instill that confidence back that this is something that she can do again. And I was very happy when she started responding to the activities and initiatives that I was asking her to take. And within a span of, I think, 6 weeks that she started working with me, she found a role with one of the big banks in Australia, where she got a good project manager role. Because she had the capability, she had the sort of skill set, the strengths. It is just that she probably was not, confident of where and how she should position herself. So yeah, I was very happy with her result, that, she was able to join back, and it has been almost like 5 years now. And she's doing a wonderful, job. She's changed roles as well. She's gone into another organization now. So, and it is really satisfying to see such kind of cases. I'll tell you about another person. Her name is Shiny, and she's a very interesting person, because she was in India when she contacted me, and she had some experience in Africa for a couple of years. She was in the non-profit sector space. So she was working as more like a project coordinator, project manager, but in the non-profit area. So like in Maharashtra, she was helping with some initiatives for, helping the traditional people here, like the Adivasi, community, and those kind of government initiatives she was helping deliver. So very different kind of work, not like probably my kind of work where I help people with technology and all that, right? So it is really non-technology. And when she contacted me, she was not sure as to where she should position. So she started working with me, even when she had, even flown before. So even before she flew to Australia, she started working with me. So I started helping her with understanding as to, what her skills are, what her strengths are, and what kind of roles she can really position herself in. Like non-profit, for example, is again a big industry in Australia. There are a lot of volunteer organizations. In fact, Australians love to volunteer, so all Australians have some kind of volunteering role. So I, found that there is a role of a policy officer. There's a certain kind of role which is policy officer, which does similar kind of work as to what she was doing. But here it was called as project coordinator. There it was called as policy officer. So we said, okay, this role is closest to, your skill set. So then she started applying for roles in nonprofit. We started connecting with people in that industry. And then as soon as she landed, she had a couple of interviews already lined up. In the interview, she was able to position herself because this particular organization was doing some work in the Aboriginal space, which are again sort of the local, people there in Australia who lived there even before the English came. And she was able to relate her experience helping the Adivasi people in India and the initiatives which were done by the government for that community and how it can help in that context overseas. And then because of those examples, she was able to find her job within sort of couple of weeks of landing in Australia. So that was another really good outcome that we were able to achieve, because you don't know as to what really can work out for you if you don't have the right guidance. And that is where you feel a little bit proud that you are able to add some value into how you can really help people, right? So like this, there are many stories, like people moving from Dubai. A lot of people move from Dubai to Australia as well. So there was this gentleman, Shojab, I think, and this was way back, I think 2018 or 19, and he was a lawyer, and he wanted to move to Australia, and he got his PR sorted and all that, and he said, look, can you help me find a job? Now he found a job as a legal consultant in a bank. So that is how we were able to position and find the right role for him and get him into the industry. So again, it doesn't mean that if you're a lawyer you just have to work for a law agency. You can also work for uh, or corporates, because obviously every large corporate have their own legal departments, right? So we were able to position him there. So yeah, there are too many success stories of different people from different backgrounds. A web developer, Smita, full stack developer, again contacted me from India and started working with me. And since landing, couple of weeks within landing, she found her role with one of the fintech firms there. So it's not necessary that you will always find a job with one of the large organizations. You'll probably find jobs with even smaller companies or startups, or small medium size enterprises as well. It is just following the steps, I guess. So yeah, too many success stories to count.
Okay, that's very good. I'm sure a lot of aspirants who will be listening to this or watching this will reach out to you, will share your details, of course. So, Gaurav, just to understand, you are right now based in Pune, which is India, but you continue to have your, all your business operations still in Australia. Uh, so how do you actually manage both the timings? Because I think there is a 4.5 hours, 5 hours difference. So people in Australia still reach out to you, or people across the world reach out to you. In any case, I mean, today it's all digital world. So what's exactly happening now?
Yeah, look, I mean, we are in daylight savings, so we have daylight savings in Australia, and you have right now we are 5.5 hours behind. So after April, we'll be 4.5 hours behind. Um, as you rightly said, we live in a very digital connected world. So I have a lot of people who reach out to me from Australia itself because they are already in Australia and they need help. So a lot of my client base is still in Australia, and I keep on working with them. I have started getting some traction from the Indian market as well. So a lot of Indians have now started reaching out to me because they know that I'm here and they can talk to me locally as well. And they need help because they are, trying to move to Australia or, thinking about moving to Australia. I'm also investing a lot of time and effort in other geographies like Dubai, for example, because there are a lot of people in Dubai who want to move to Australia. The biggest reason why people in Dubai or Singapore, really think or consider moving to Australia is because Australia has a citizenship pathway. So you can become a permanent resident and a citizen. So if you live long enough, like 4 years, if you live as a permanent resident, then after that you are eligible to apply for citizenship of Australia. So you can get that citizenship. And with India, there is no dual citizenship, but we do have the OCI, the Overseas Citizen of India, option as well. So you can take that and then you can live in the country, travel to the country, work in the country if you want to, and you also get a good solid strong passport which can help you travel across the world, and you can also call Australia as your own country, so which kind of people don't get if they go to Dubai or if they go to Singapore or these other countries. So a lot of people from there obviously move to Australia, so they have been trying to reach out to me as well. So yeah, I mean the kind of, and this is from a consulting perspective, the platform that I'm building, which is going to help people build their professional network, that is a global platform which can help people build their professional network anywhere. Obviously, if you are in Australia, then obviously it can help you in that particular region. But even if people are migrating from, say, Pune to Bangalore, they will need the same challenges. They will need connections. They will need new, people that they can talk to and get feedback and maybe get introductions, etc. So it is not going to be very country specific platform. But yes, from a consulting perspective, if you are moving to Australia, then you probably are talking to one of them who has already seen that, done that sort of a situation.
Okay. And I know that you have started doing meetups also in India. So can you just give a brief about what exactly you do in the meetups?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that. Look, there are a couple of things that I'm doing. One is obviously in the job search space as part of the Jobseeker Circle initiative, where I have started conducting some events on helping people find job overseas, but then also determine if they really want to move overseas or not. So because that is another very important decision to make even before you start thinking about job applications, etc. So that is one area that I have been trying to help people with. So they can book some time, they can have a conversation around what is it that they really need to consider if they want to move overseas. So I've been doing events in that space in terms of making decisions to move overseas or finding job overseas. There's another initiative that I have recently started, which is a community that I'm building for business analysts. So it's called BA Circle, and the idea there is to help BAs grow in their careers, and people who are not BAs, if they want to become BAs, then how to become a BA, what skills to develop. So as part of that, we have a very active WhatsApp group, which is already going live in Australia. So now that is another thing that I'm launching in India, where I'm trying to get a lot of people join the community so that they can really get some good advice, some international exposure as well, because they can understand as to how other countries are working in the business analysis space. It's a very interesting role. It definitely has a lot of good opportunities. So if somebody is who is probably not a BA and wants to become a BA, then they can join a community like this, which will help them in their professional development. So I've been doing now events in that space as well. I have an upcoming event coming end of November, where I'm going to talk a lot about how somebody can really grow in the business analysis space and what are the opportunities there, what are the industry trends, what is it that the hiring managers look for, so those kind of things. So yeah, there are too many things I think happening. in trying to help. I mean, the whole intent is to help people in, some shape and form, and trying to give back as much as you can. In the process, obviously, if you can make some money, okay, but the intent is basically to help, as many people as I can.
Fantastic. You're doing great job, Gaurav. And just to tell everyone who are watching or listening to this, Gaurav has been kind enough to be on the India Career Center platform as well as an associate mentor. So if somebody wants to reach out to him through our platform also, you can actually do that. You can actually get into a conversation with him, which will help you to decide your future path. Gaurav, before we close the session, would you like to give some closing remark with respect to specifically about Australia, how one should be preparing for their movement to Australia?
Yeah, no, look, first of all, thanks a lot for having me. I think it was a very, good session. Whenever I was talking about things, it was also bringing some really good memories for me, and, trying to do a little bit of retrospection that always helps, I guess, as go further. So thanks a lot for having me. I think from a, general advice, I would say is that, if you want to move to a country, I would suggest that, if possible, travel to the country first. So if you are planning to go to Australia, maybe book a holiday, go there for 7 days, 10 days. Look at certain cities, see how the infrastructure is there. If you have some friends or colleagues, try to meet them. Get an understanding of the local sort of way of living. Standard of living, cost of living, get a feel for it. So see, migration is a very big step. So when you're moving from one place to another, there are a lot of things that are getting impacted. So your own personal sort of, family, your friends, everything, right? Your professional life. So before you take such a big decision and try and invest time and money and resources in, the whole process, I think it is important to get a feel for the place first. So if you have friends in a particular city, maybe go to that city first, but try and travel a bit. See, Australia is a beautiful country. If you go there, you will be blown away by the nature and the accessibility of the nature that it has. It has one of the best beaches in the world. Beautiful national parks, a lot of walking trails. So if you love nature, then Australia is a place to be. So if you want a certain kind of lifestyle that you want to develop, because you are moving overseas and you want to be very active, say physically, you want to build on your physical health, mental health, you want to have a very good balance. I know in India, working culture is a little bit on the skewed side. You probably work 8 to 8 and 9 to 5. So if you want a good balance of, that work is just a part of your life, nobody is going to disturb you after 5. You have your weekends to yourself. If you're looking for that kind of life, if you're not getting that in India, for example, then you should start thinking about considering moving to such kind of place. But simple advice is first travel the place. Go there. If you're spending a few a bit of money, it will be worth the investment, because that will help you get a good idea whether you can think about moving there or not. So obviously it has a lot of big Indian communities. So you get access to Indian festivals and Indian culture and all that. Not as grand and as pompous as what we have in India. It has its own scale. So you still get some idea about how Indians generally live there and where do they live and what do they do and all that. It can become a bit lonely if you don't have many friends, there. So if you don't develop a lot of friends, then it can tend to become a little bit lonely, where you don't know what you're going to do on the weekends, how much you will travel, how much you will see, if you're seeing everything. So that is another sort of side to moving into these countries, because people generally don't talk to each other. But I mean, I have seen the same thing in the metros in India as well. People have become a little bit more, in their own shells. So which is
Self-centered.
self-centered, right? So I think, so yeah. But travel first, and then take the call.
Fantastic. I think that's a very good advice. I think with that, we have come to the end of this session. Gaurav, you have been fantastic with your insights about Australia and in general about if somebody is wanting to take up overseas path for career development. I'm sure a lot of our young listeners and viewers will reach out to you. We'll share all the links which you have mentioned on the show notes so that people can reach out to you. And of course, you are very much accessible on your LinkedIn profile, which is fantastic. I think anybody can send a request to you on your LinkedIn. So yeah, that's very good. Thank you for all your lovely, good advice, which is very balanced, which is not skewed towards anything. You have given a very balanced opinion and advice to listeners and viewers. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, SV, for having me. It was a lovely conversation, and I hope that the audience enjoys. And as you said, they can reach out to me. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to help or answer them.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. We sincerely wish you could take something from our conversation today and be able to apply it to your life in a positive way. We value your feedback. This can help us improve our future episodes. So share your thoughts to serve you better. If you want us to focus on a topic which you think is of importance, let us know. We will share our expertise in future episodes. So, see you soon with a new topic and help you in your career journey.